understand the conversation. What Kickstarter are we talking about?
Okay, so Valiant has a Kickstarter for a Eternal Warrior book, and I can't remember the subtitle. I think Fox
Scorched Earth.
Scorched Earth, yeah. So there's a Kickstarter for an original graphic novel, Eternal Warrior Scorched Earth, and it hasn't launched yet. But if you subscribe to their newsletter, their Kickstarter newsletter on the Valiant website, then you get something like free or something. I can't remember. But
they might send you a bookmark if you're like the first 250 who subscribe to the newsletter.
You might still be the first 250.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not going to convince Fox or people like Fox, but to everybody out there, don't support this Kickstarter. It's bullshit.
Oh yeah, I'm supporting it. I'm not supporting
because Valiant is owned by a major company. They can put out a book on their own without a Kickstarter. Kickstarter is needed by independent creators, and it's bullshit. These companies get into it.
But this major company, DMG, is a shitty company. They don't even like. They're just using Valiant as an IP farm. This Kickstarter is Valiant trying to create creative material despite being underserved by DMG.
I understand all of that. It doesn't matter. There's more than enough money within that company, within that area. They don't need to go to Kickstarter. Go and support independent creators on Kickstarter. That is what Kickstarter is meant for.
Yeah, I disagree with that, mainly because like I stopped doing Kickstarters for a while, and then I did the Berserker one, and I've supported like 30 more Kickstarters I wouldn't have seen if I didn't get pulled back in because of the Berserker one. And going with Eternal Warrior, I don't think you have to worry about too many people supporting it. It's going to be mainly Valiant fans who are like, just give us anything. They're only putting out 2 issues a month. Lemire puts out like 12 issues a month.
And they'll then be exposed to maybe some indie stuff. So
yeah.
I think that's a watertight argument, Fox. Just saying.
I don't think a lot of people went to Berserker and then or Nocturnal or any of these big Kickstarters and then went to one of my buddies that lives on is making his money off Kickstarters. It makes me mad when these companies get on Kickstarters. They have more than enough money to produce the book, get it into comic shops, and do it themselves. I'm firmly against any company doing this.
I think it just brings more eyes to it.
I think I see you see both points. I said the same thing right away. Was like DMG in the Discord. I literally said that I'm like, dope, more Valiant.
You said it gave you a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, and I hated it, and it was like, oh, give me something to drink because that's nasty.
The taste in your mouth.
Yeah, it was like, and so, yeah, I didn't like it at first either. But I guess what I would want to know, and I don't know if we'd ever know, they wouldn't put out something like this, but I'd be like, hey, is this a pitch from like disgruntled Valiant creators to get a book out, or is this DMG? Saying I don't want to pay for a new book. Why don't we do it this way? If it's the latter, I would say that I would agree with you, Chris. That's bullshit. If this is the creators going, bro, like we want to put out something great, let's do it this way, and that's the only way they can do it. You gotta be
I think this Kickstarter is either a Kickstarter for the Valiant, like, oh yeah, we actually do have fans, or it's a wind down, and it might be the end of the road pretty soon for Valiant. Because DMG is probably not putting any money into the publishing. They're like, just publish 2 issues a month so we could say we have IP to make movies. But other than that, I mean, seriously, 2 issues a month at most. Lemire put out 10 issues last month. Scott Snyder has like 5 issues a month. We're not even as big as an individual creator at this point.
There's a Kickstarter.
You have to ask yourself is, and the answer is easy for yourself, Chris Rundt. Really, I would say for most of us on the panel, except for Fox and Judah and Danny and Michael Malone, like you have like people who like Valiant, like, yeah, I'm glad I'm into it. Like, let's read it. But then you have people who are like super fans. And I think what you have to ask yourself, and again, the answer will be different depending on how big of a fan you are, is not supporting DMG worth never seeing a big Valiant book like this again? I'd rather Valiant die than support a DMG Kickstarter. And so some people was like, yeah, I want the fucking lesson to be learned. But to a Valiant fan, they'd be like, no, I want that extra.
So there's levels, and this is where I say I think a part of our problem as a society is that consumers are bitches. And what I mean by that is that they don't stand up for things. And I just think this is wrong. Like, I didn't like it when who did Berserker?
As an anti-capitalist, I agree with you.
Keanu Reeves and Boom.
Boom Studios did it. Like Keanu Reeves, whatever. But Boom Studios did it, and they did not need to kickstart that book to put out those. They could have put those things out into the fucking previews catalog right here, and sold just as many, if not more, copies.
We talked to Matt Kint about it. Matt Kint, we asked directly Matt Kint that exact question about how he felt about it going to Kickstarter. He talks about that.
But the Kickstarter model, maybe that's just better. Maybe it would be better if literally everyone did that. Like maybe it's just better in general that creators. I mean, they get to sell their shit directly, and the company doesn't have to print a bunch of shit that they're not going to sell and just waste resources and money. And it's a waste. It's a waste. We talked to Dinesh, and he was talking about warehouses full of trades that'll never sell. So like maybe it's not necessarily big companies edging in on small creators' territory. Maybe it's just the shift. Maybe it's just an overall shift to a better and more efficient model for creating content.
Here's the problem with that is that's exactly what happened with platforms like YouTube, where if you like, so Dinesh said that, right? But then what did Dinesh and company do? They started a company to put out comic books in the smartest way, and even then you get people who shit on them for doing it the way they do it, right? I in this particular part of the conversation, I would agree wholeheartedly with Chris, without nuance, that in doing it that way, you create a new YouTube where no one really, let's be real, no one really has a chance to make it super big anymore on YouTube, because we have IGN and ABC and these mega channels, Comedy Central, making these mega channels that you'll never really truly be able to compete with.
I don't think that's the case though.
I think it makes it harder.
It's not like people have a limited amount of tokens that they can only spend on certain platforms. It's like YouTube, you can watch as many videos as you want. Like
the algorithm, the discoverability. Here's absolutely mechanics that stop you from being able to see.
Here's where my concern is, Judah. It's the slippery slope. It's right now it's just Valiant, and it was like just Boom for one book. But it's, to put it in video game terms, like when fucking PlayStation went out in the E3 stage and was like, support our Kickstarter. It's like, fuck you. You are a multi-billion-dollar company. Fucking fund the thing. And that's what I say to these, because at a certain point, like if this is super successful and it works, and I'm Fox, I'm not shitting on you or any of the other Valiant fans. I get where you're coming from. That's why I said in the beginning, I'm never going to convince you. And I'm sure there's a line for me too and everybody else. But if this becomes like the biggest Kickstarter ever, and then what happens when like Disney comes in and is like, why don't we just kickstart the next like Spider-Man book? Like, why are we doing it? Like, and if we get to that point, that's where I worry, because then it is the YouTube model where it's much, much harder for us to come in as nobodies and do something, where right now Kickstarter thrives on nobodies. And I don't mean that derogatorily.
To go back to Fox's
Valiant's kind of nobodies right now.
Well,
but they're not nobodies. That's the thing. Like they're really not. Like I understand you're upset with, and
I'm surprised they're still around.
I think it's dumb too that what they're doing. Like at this point, you should just close shop, because what you're doing is I don't understand. But it's still, they're not nobodies. It's not like Valiant in the 90s when it came out of nowhere and nobody knew who the fuck they were.
They do have some brand recognition. It's true. Just to revisit one of Fox's earlier points, I went to support Berserker because I was stoked. Just the idea, I was sold on it. I went to support Berserker, and there's a series called Arcs, written by or published by Clicky Sproutwife, and I had never heard of that. I didn't see any interviews. Nobody tweeted about it, but I saw it advertised to me when I was paying for Berserker, and I went ahead and backed that too, just because it looked dope. So how do you kind of why is that not a good thing? You know what I mean?
I'm not saying that doesn't. Okay, that may happen, but what I'm saying is there's a point where that's no longer the case. There's a point 100%. Where the next Valiant Kickstarter is then advertising the next DC Kickstarter, and that's what I don't want to happen. So that's why I say none of these companies should be doing it, because they have more than enough capital. They have the supply stream and everything to do it on their own. They do not need to crowdfund something. The difference between Kickstarter and pre-ordering a book is exactly what I said. The company paid for its book on its own. It went through the proper channels and sold directly to the retailer, as opposed to an independent Kickstarter who is one person usually that put their own heart and money into it and then got it printed is bringing it all out themselves, and they don't have the option of going to previews. That's the difference.
Here's the biggest thing is that money will always talk, right? So Kickstarter we know is better than other crowdfunding platforms, right? But all it takes is for the revenue to go from the millions to the tens of millions to the hundreds of millions, right? For that to not be the case. You're right. Anybody can search for whatever. But when I get done watching a Comedy Central deal and it has suggested videos, there's nobody that they'll ever in a million fucking years show me that has less than fucking 1 million followers or something, because they want to be able to make money. So that worked for Berserker, but exactly like Chris said, once that keeps happening, those suggested boxes are going to become things that are going to make them more money, because it's written in the law. Like, you literally have to do decisions that make your board members, the you know what the fuck I'm trying to say.
I got it.
Yeah. And the unfortunate reality for people like Fox and other big Valiant fans is that if it did go my way and this thing failed, Valiant would take that as, oh, nobody wants Eternal Warrior, not that they did the wrong thing. And that's the other issue there too. But yeah.
Okay. It might very well fail.
I don't know what
the
fix is, though.
I hope not.
I do like the idea of pre-ordering in a way, because that's what Matt King kind of led to. Like, just going by memory, check it out if you haven't already. No, Matt Kent. When we brought up why someone like Keanu Reeves or these big or Boom went to Kickstarter, one of the things that he mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing, and I hope I don't misquote, is the fact that it kind of gives like, hey, let's see how many people like it. Let's not waste money putting out something that people might not like. And Kickstarter gives you that instant like, yep, people want it. And now, of course, every issue after has nothing to do with Kickstarter. It's literally that one to give your free marketing analysis. It worked. They made the money. They got the issue 1 out. And now you have Boom just releasing at its own. I do find value in that. I just don't know that you should be using Kickstarter for it. Maybe use your own website, because your website, you don't have a small Twitter account. Hey, on Boom right now, if we can get this many pre-orders, then the book will go. Head over to boom.com.
They're using Kickstarter like a proof of concept.
They could crowdfund directly from their own platform and use it as the same type of marketing research device.
I'll also say I want to put the line at company in person, because if Matt Kent went out on his own and said, I'm going to make this book, because I support Colin Bunn on Kickstarter. 100%. When Colin does it, it's not kickstart this so that I can publish it at Dark Horse. Mm-hmm. Those books do not get republished, or at least haven't as of yet.
Yeah.
And he did learn with one of his books that he did as a trade that he didn't want to do that through Kickstarter anymore. So he told the fans, like, listen, I'm Colin Bunn and I can go and get this published somewhere. So I'm going to go do that. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a line there. And even that, like, I'm a little wavery on, but
I'll add another line is and this, I'm with you as far as wavery. And part of that waiver is, how rich are you? Even if you're an individual, like Matt Kent putting out a Kickstarter, dope. Colin Bunn, dope. I'll back it all day. Keanu Reeves, if that was like not a Boom book, if it was like his own project, I'm like, bitch, fucking pay for this shit, motherfucker.
DMG is pretty rich, but Valiant itself is not. They're putting out like 2 books a month, maybe.
Yeah.
If that. So I don't know if they have the resources themselves.
Before we close up, I do want to make a correction real quick. I know this is a while ago, but I didn't want to interrupt. When I said, I don't know why, but I thought this Kickstarter thing was going to be like some crossover event. This is going to be an Eternal Warrior deal.
Yes.
Yep.
So I need everyone and their mother to spam their Twitter accounts, whoever's involved with this, and I need fucking payoff.
Need answers about Sword of the Wild. Right on.
So I'm looking at the comments just to clear up a question in there. Danny, what if Kickstarter is for a deluxe version like Noctera? I fall in the
Or
same
backslash.
line. That's being published by fucking Image Comics. It can go into a previous catalog, and people will buy it.
I mean, Image is always crowdfunded, just for the most part. I mean, not necessarily traditionally like we're talking about, but
Creator funded.
They're creator funded. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't really see, even to your point, even agreeing with your point, I don't see it really going against what you're saying. If someone crowdfunds an Image book, because they're just trying to raise money to get Image to publish it, just like they would even if they weren't using Kickstarter.
I know a lot of people inside of some of the small like Scout Comics and so on and so forth, and some of those books were crowdfunded on Kickstarter and then published through Scout and all these other places. I don't have a problem with that because it's usually Robo Strange made a book, and like, no offense to Robo Strange because I have less followers. Who is Robo Strange? Like, he's not Colin Bunn. He's not Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder can walk in a room and be like, I want to write a book, and it's going to be about this, that, and the other, and I'm going to get Greg Capullo to do it. And they're like, cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, he that's why I say there's levels. And while, yes, it is funded by the creator, like, there's just levels. And Scott, and how successful Scott is in his career and how successful that book is, it could definitely be done without a Kickstarter.
Right on.
If you want to hear interviews from industry pros, get first looks, and have access to endless comic content, wake up. Please wake up. You're in a coma. Your mother misses you.